welcome. Today's guests on the Kingdom Yoga podcast are Anna Forrest and Jose Calarco. So, generally I try and keep a low profile here, and I suppose I'm the host, but my purpose is to highlight the guests and ask the right questions and then get out of their way and let them talk. And it's not an easy proposition, and I'm not sure I'm always getting better at it. So thanks for bearing with me. And we're really fortunate we have great guests. As always, feel free to let us know what you think and give us a review on iTunes and donate if you fancy. They're always welcome and they really help keep us going. So Anna has been practicing and teaching yoga for over 40 years, studying with BKS Iyengar, a brief stint even with Patabi Joyce, and then she's formed and taught for many years her own eponymously named Forrest Yoga. Coming from a background of trauma, she's also always sought and always integrated general healing in her teaching. So it's always been a strong asana practice, but also strongly focused on healing, looking specifically to the Native American traditions, actually, with whom she has spent extended periods. And she's learnt about using ceremony and medicine, which they talk a lot about, Anna and Jose, and incorporating that into the whole kind of journey of yoga that the individual goes through, not just a class. It's an incredible experience that they're giving. So more recently, in the last 5 years or so, she has joined up with Jose Calarco, her partner, and he is a musician, a healer, and of Aboriginal descent, Australian. And so they now teach together, and Jose puts together a real production, which functions, as I said, like a journey, a cleansing and a healing. Anna and Jose are incredibly sincere and passionate about what they do. An incredible couple to interview, actually. They truly teach yoga and live yoga as an attitude to life. And to that end, they're committed and outspoken also to the yoga diet, which they're very particular on. And listen to the end to hear their particular views about the yoga diet. Well, let's get down to it. Welcome, Anna and Jose, to the Kingdom Yoga podcast. Okay, so welcome Anna and Jose to the Kingdom Yoga podcast. Lovely to have you.
Thank you, Adam.
Thanks for coming on. Thank you. Okay, so I suppose let's start from the start. So for our audience that's predominantly Ashtanga based, could you just explain a little bit about Forrest Yoga for those that don't know anything about it?
Forrest Yoga came about from me working on healing my injuries.
Yeah.
And also in realizing where I wasn't getting nourished in yoga and the traditional forms of yoga, of which I also was involved in Ashtanga and Iyengar yoga and Shivananda yoga. I worked in each of these things and got something out of each of them. Was also missing a really big piece, which had to do with the connection to my spirit. And I learned to do that spirit work in the Native American medicine ways. And so I learned to bring together the medicine ways and what I started to call Forrest Yoga. So there's the ceremonial aspect of it. There's also a brilliant, intelligent sequencing of how to work with the poses in the most healing way. So for example, let's say you wanted to do a handstand or a wheel pose. To do the poses that warm up the joints and the muscles so that you can get to that pose successfully and also to warm you down properly. So this helps heal injuries, but it also helps prevent injuries. We do a lot of core work, a lot of abdominal work, because when you turn on the abdominals, then you have this innate core intelligence functioning and you are less inclined to move awkwardly or unconsciously in a way that you could get tweaked. You just move more intelligently, as well as getting your guts and your belly and your back strong and clean and clear. Then, and when 8 years ago, when me and Jose got together, Jose brought in his shamanic music field, as well as his knowing and wisdom from his practices as a healer, as a seer, and as a man that's worked with Aboriginal people for many years.
So I had been with the Aboriginal people for just under 30 years. And for those unfamiliar with the Aboriginal people of Australia, it's the world's oldest living culture, dating back 60,000 years. So when we get together, we call that a corroboree, a spiritual gathering. And in my time in yoga, people were coming to us with very serious problems, suicidal, financial, relationship. And I thought, we've got these people for 2 hours, 2.5 hours in our yoga class. We need to make this like a gathering, like a mass, not being Christian or anything, but like a corroboree, as we call it, a spiritual gathering where we give them the medicine of a smoking ceremony, music, an intelligent yoga class, which has a proper beginning, midpoint, and ending with intelligent sequencing. And we were also not just working on the physical aspect, we were working with connection to spirit. And that was basically missing in a lot of traditional yoga we were doing. So we combined forces to come up with a beautiful ceremonial yoga. That's what I could call it. Like Anna and I are both not yoga. We're both spiritual teachers, and we have been all our life. And we wanted to put that imprint there. We had a great understanding of life. Just because someone can do a handstand doesn't mean they understand anything about the spirit or life.
No, yes.
Or someone who has a strong practice may have nothing between his ears. But yeah, in a nutshell, that's what Forrest Yoga has become today.
And also, we both love intensity. And so the practice feeds that. But because of the disparate kind of people that come in, like we can have athletes coming in, and we can have people recovering from surgery or from having a baby coming in, or people that have been sexually abused and so inside they're devastated, or just all kinds of people that I work a lot with, war veterans. So there's a lot of deep injuries or poisoning or whatever that's happened. And so we, throughout the course of a class, we give up what I call up leveling and down leveling. So the more advanced people are the ones that are like wanting to hit the intensity edge. They do this variation. And those people that have a knee injury or need something gentler, they do this variation. And we put that out throughout the class so that there's choices to be made depending on what's happening each day. But it gets the endorphins going. There's a sense of accomplishment. And when the practice is finished, because we finish off with Jose doing this beautiful medicine music that takes you into the dream time, something else happens. Something really magical.
There's an amazing documentary, Adam, called 100-Foot Wave on HBO at the moment. Millions and millions of views from all over the world. Now, these surfers, they're surfers who surf 100-foot wave in
Portugal.
Yeah. So they came to us before they made the documentary, and several of them had broken backs or serious back injuries. So they came to Forrest Yoga to recuperate. So it's a fascinating documentary, and we not only did we use yoga poses, but we also used music healing, sound healing. Sound healing has been around for 60,000 years. The Aboriginal people play the didgeridoo. I think most viewers would know what a didgeridoo is.
You've got to say its original name for people. You said it on another podcast. Because I never realized it's called, what was it called?
It's Yigi Yigi.
Yeah, the Yigi Yigi. Yeah.
But it has many, many names.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, this is so funny because everyone knows it's the didgeridoo. I suppose that, Anna, can I first ask you then? I mean, it just sounds incredible, and I feel a bit of shortchanged with Ashtanga then. Listening to all that with a class with a firm beginning and a middle and an end, and the music, and there's just so much to it. But I know, Anna, you came from a background where you use yoga to almost as a lifeline, right? To get you out of dark place and for healing. Was that the original attempt, or were you good at it from the start, or was it? I mean, it's a physical yoga you're teaching; it's quite dynamic. Would you just, if we backtrack a little bit now, just to go through how you envisaged and how you came up in your youth, because you started when you were very young. I mean, 16, I think, or something like that, right?
A little younger than that. I started around 1973.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, and
I went to my first yoga class because a girl in school said, "I have something you can't do."
Yeah, I know. I heard you say that.
And so I took out my cigarettes and I tapped it down and did the whole little routine, kind of shocked, because I'd never had a conversation with this girl before. It was just such an odd conversation. And I lit up my smoke and looked at her and I was like, "Oh, that's impossible." And so she brought me to a yoga class, which was very strange. And I was terrible. I was riding horses and training horses at the time for many years. And I was very, very stiff. I was also a preteen alcoholic. I was doing whatever drugs I could get. I smoked. I was not sleeping about 3 times a week. It's like I was not in a good place. And yoga did not appeal to me right away. It hurt. And I was so shocked because there's all these old people and they're almost all women. They had to be at least 30 years old. And they could bend forward and touch their toes or reach back in a bow pose and grab their ankles. I couldn't do any of that.
I know. I had the same experience. Yeah.
I could not reach below my knees in a forward bend. So no, I was not good at it. But somehow something caught me. And so even though I didn't build a friendship with this girl, she was like a sacred intervention, just like she threw down the gauntlet and I took it up. And yet I kept going back to yoga, and it helped me work my way through a lot of really difficult places, but I had to go elsewhere because the way that I was coming into yoga, I loved the way I felt at the end. And when I found Ashtanga, I really liked that. And I made some good friends there. And we've always had good support from the Ashtanga community. Many of the Ashtanga people, when they find that the practice isn't working for them anymore, they come to Forrest Yoga. And we teach them a different way of moving, a different way of breathing, and also how to sequence the poses so that they work better together. In other words, I don't advocate that you do wheel pose after doing a bunch of forward bends, because it's actually moving in the wrong direction. You need to be doing lunges and other back bending and twisting poses to warm up for a deeper back bend. And then you need to do a proper warm down. And so this is part of the intelligence that we bring into the practice.
How did you get there? How did you get to that intelligence? Because I know that you had some time with Iyengar, who called you the expert or something like that. A nickname for you. You didn't get on with Mr. Iyengar that well.
No.
And also you spent time with Pattabhi Jois, I think, briefly before you kind of pulled his hand away from his wandering hands away from you.
That's true.
How did you? Was there a lot of training and other types of yoga before you formulated your own version of yoga? And how did that come about?
I did take. I started out in the Shivananda system.
Okay.
Which really doesn't have that intelligence sequencing. Iyengar had a very good attention toward alignment.
You're right.
And the Ashtanga system had this beautiful, let's just keep moving kind of action going. And yet what's missing is how these things work together. And one of the things that I brought to yoga has to do coming from my horse training times. I was an apprentice to a horse trainer for hunters and jumpers. And you warm a horse up very thoroughly before you take it over jumps. You warm it up with twisting and you warm up and then you warm down. You don't just take a horse out of the stall, put a saddle on it, and then jump over a 5-foot fence. That's crazy. And yet in yoga, that's frequently what's done. Or in some classes, it's just like whatever pose pops into the teacher's head, they do it. It's like, this is stupid.
I did hear that other podcast. You referred to kind of many asanas are stupid asanas, like that have no sense to them. And you also talk about intelligence a lot. Can you give like a more specific example of what you'd call, say like even in the Ashtanga series? I don't mind, I'm completely open to this, taking like asanas that have no intelligence to ones that do have intelligence.
Well, I'll give an example of there's a pose called Khandasana, which is
feet up to navel.
The feet actually are more towards the chest and the ankle.
Yes, solar plexus. Yes.
Really an intense angle. And I remember working on this pose thinking this feels really damaging. And I thought, well, maybe I just need to work past my beginner's awkwardness. And as I worked it over about a year and a half, my knees and ankles got worse and worse and worse. And I just thought, this pose, someone created it, but it doesn't mean it's a good pose. I don't think it's a good pose. I will not teach it.
Right. Or Mula Bandhasana. And there's a number of, kind of knee poses as you get into the advanced series of Ashtanga that start to feel a little bit dodgy for me. But what's an example of an asana-based practice with intelligence then, apart from the warm-up, warm-down part of it? What other aspects go into a full Forrest Yoga asana practice first before we move on beyond that? So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, first I need to back up from the asanas and say, we always set intent. And the intent could be something very specific, like pick an area in your body that needs healing.
Right.
Or it could be very specific about this class is about lower back, because so many people have lower back issues. And we do poses that open the back, that strengthen the back. We focus and coach how to breathe into the back. And so that by the end of the session, the back is different. And usually the pain has moved out or at least lessened. So that's important, is every class has this intent. Sometimes the intent is connecting to a warrior's heart or learning to embody your spirit. So when you do a pose, it's not about whether or not you have your foot on your head in dancer pose. It's about, can you come into this pose and then literally spread your spirit throughout the pose? Do you do a pose in a way that moves your energy smoothly through it, or is it like a static storm? That's, because you're breathing and you're moving erratically and your nerves are starting to fire off in an unhealthy way, therefore setting you up for a tweak. That's called working stupidly. So learning how to monitor and feel, this is a big deal. It's like teaching people how to feel and process that information in a way that makes sense.
Absolutely.
When you start to feel some kind of pain in the pose, is that a stretching pain? Is that a pain where you're injuring yourself? What is that? Don't go numb to it. Don't quit, and don't try to barge through it, but find out, what is that sensation? What is your body telling you? And what's the best way to work with it? Do you need to make the pose a little easier? Do you need to shift slightly to take the pressure off of something that's complaining? You respond to what you're feeling.
Okay, so whistle stop tour. So on to the next question. Something that really attracts me in what you're doing, and maybe Jose might say a word about how you brought the ceremony and medicine further into Anna's yoga practice, right? What does this mean, like medicine and ceremony? I mean, you talk about it a lot. For someone who knows very little about Native American medicine, I wonder how you incorporate, first of all, the medicine into the practice.
Well, that's a very, very complex question. As I said earlier before, when I went to yoga, I was seeing that people had serious problems, as I said, like suicide and psychological neurosis, all different types of damage. So being a singer, a piano player, guitarist, drummer, medicine person, and having 30 years with the Aboriginal people, when we come together in ceremony, we come together to connect with spirit, to get outside of the thinker. We come into a fertile space called the second attention. The first attention is just the trivial mind, which, what am I going to have for lunch? What am I going to do today? Always judging, always comparing. And To get the person to the second attention, I created a beginning to the class where we have a musical beginning, like a meditation, incorporating a smudging ceremony. Now, I must add that the ceremonies that Anna and I do are not Aboriginal and they're not Native American. They're our own personal life experience. Are they Indigenous influence? Absolutely. Why wouldn't they be? I've been 30 years with the Descendants Aboriginal Dance Company, and Anna spent countless years on a reservation with a Native American medicine person. And this is the one aspect that I could see in yoga that was missing, and that was a connection to spirit. Look, I loved hardcore yoga as well. I used to be a front row Bikram practitioner, sweating and leading classes. And I always, I used to love the hardcore. But there came a time where there needed to be some intelligence, because there was a lot of people in Bikram, Ashtanga, many other forms of yoga coming to us with shoulder injuries, knee injuries, ankle injuries, back injuries. And so, people needed to slow down their practice a little bit instead of just diving in and diving out of a practice. So we go into a pose and out of the pose safely. And the medicine part is what differentiates Forrest Yoga from everything else. So I was also an artistic director, and I saw that the yoga industry in general was amateur when it came to video presentation, audio, sound, everything. It was very just whatever happens, you here, you there. So just like a good movie script, I made sure that the beginning, midpoint, and ending all made sense, and threading medicine like a good movie. Like when you watch a good movie, you want to walk out with a spring in your step. But at the beginning of the movie, you need to grab the person's attention.
So when you say medicine, then, are we talking about ceremony? Is that what medicine means? The use of ceremony in the practice? Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
medicine.
okay, right.
Music is medicine.
Right. Okay.
Smoking ceremony, spoken word, flute, piano. So,
and Anna, were you doing ceremony before Jose, and how have you developed that as you've come together?
Yes. That was actually one of my personal journeys for years before we met. I was studying medicine and working in ceremonies and going to different people, and also learning to do ceremony on my own. So it's not just going and working with the medicine person. It's making that personal connection with the sacred ones. So it's like, you can go and take a class with somebody, but you've got to do your yoga practice on your own or on a regular basis. So I had these two separate lives. There was the yoga teacher and the medicine person. And it took me a long time to realize that the way I was running my life that way, I was splitting myself. And I did a lot of prayers. Actually, I went to the sacred ones and said, how do I bring this together? I don't have enough time to do both. And so that's when I started to ponder and meditate on and to bring ceremony into the yoga experience. And so that started with setting intent and started with doing the smoke ceremony. Now, the smoke ceremony is lighting sage or cedar or sweetgrass or incense and cleaning the room of any negative energy. But I also would bring in fanning individual people when I had the time to do that, of just smoothing the electromagnetic field of each person and sort of getting the radifrax out of their field. So that's what we do now. Is Jose plays music that's his own creation, and I smoke and brush the individual people just to help this set up. It's like
sometimes you do a bit of drumming as well, apparently. Because sometimes, Anna, you drum badly as well, apparently. Drum out of time.
I do drum badly. I let Jose lead the music part, and I follow through the door with people. I started learning how to drum because I was having trouble with my heart, and I thought drumming would help my heart learn how to beat because it beats very strangely. But instead, I just drum very strangely.
Drum out of beats. So you're drumming to your heartbeat, but it's just out.
Yes, it's true.
Well, that may be something for life, and kind of a general kind of principle.
Yeah.
Drum to your own heartbeat, even if it's out of time.
We generally just needed a professional musician and audio and artistic director. So basically, I play ambient classical piano. I play guitar and sing. I do drum chants. I do clapstick, music stick chants, and then the prayers. So there is a sequencing of ceremony as well, which people aren't aware of. You begin with the smoking and gentle ambient music to set the person up. And then from there, we go into acknowledgement to country. And then from acknowledgement to country, we pray, set the intent, and we're away. And then we have a midpoint in the sun salutations where the chant and music comes back. And then the prayer, which we begun the class, ends the class like a Hollywood movie with a music theme that, threads all the way through the class. The class ends where it begun. And it's very intentional, the ceremonial aspect. So bringing in the professionalism to Forrest Yoga, professional music, professional ceremonies, and also the way we record and do our online product, the way other people were doing it, I just thought, no, there's no way Forrest Yoga is going down those roads. People in a kitchen with really bad audio trying to teach. So all our product, all our online product is directed very, very carefully and professionally.
So I want to bring in a different aspect here, which I think is pretty amusing, is right before Jose and I met, I was breaking into new territory with my teaching. And this was happening usually with my private clients, which was I was learning to use Brahmari in very mystical ways of helping break up the congestion in certain parts or the sickness. And with the student doing Brahmari in a directed way, me directing them. And then with me, then this was the next progression was me doing Brahmari with them and sending the buzz into the area. And then when I felt particularly brave, because this was so deeply personal, I would sing my medicine song into the area that was a problem on that person. If they had heartbreak, it would be into their heart, or if they had a tumor or whatever was going on for them. And then when Jose and I were in our courtship and we were kind of revealing these little heart secrets, and I told him about what I was working on because it was like brand new territory for me, and it was so, so private. And he looked at me kind of funny, and he said, my people have been singing into the bones for 60,000 years. And I thought, oh my God, we need to talk.
People are always going to say, oh, you don't use any Indian stuff. You don't use any pujas or the Indian. Is that just because you were both, obviously Jose comes from an indigenous background and you spent time on the reservation, or is there any particular reason you thought it's more appropriate to use this? It's more practically, can you say anything about that?
It just didn't appeal to me.
Right. Just simply that.
I don't teach what doesn't impact me. So for whatever reason, it's like I sat through many ceremonies and pujas and this and that in India. And it's like none of them said you need, none of the ceremonies and that didn't say, come work with me. With the Aboriginal people, I dreamed on it. With the Native people, there's such a deep connection. And it's like, this is my pathway. That is not. That's all.
Yeah, we both have a strong indigenous background. So obviously that's going to influence our yoga presentation. But having said that, I am an honorary citizen of India. And I was given that honor in Sydney in 1997. Right. I used to work with the Indian community, Odissi dancing, classical dancing, singing, all that. And I was a producer and promoter for the government of India. And the 50th anniversary from the liberation of England, I put on concerts, shows, and helped the Indian community. And when we first started in Forrest Yoga, instead of trying to do the Indian stuff ourselves, I brought real Indians into the room. Classical Odissi dancing, traditional Indian singing. So I brought the real stuff into the room. And after that, it just didn't feel right for Anna and I to even attempt to do their stuff. It didn't feel right. So we do what we know.
Yeah.
So we don't do the oms and the shantis and all that stuff. Yes, that is missing from Forrest Yoga. But having said that, I do love India's culture. Our favorite philosopher is J.R. Krishnamurti.
Okay, Krishnamurti. Yeah, I love Krishnamurti.
So,
yeah.
We do love the Indian stuff, but we don't.
I find it quite refreshing, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't attempt to do that stuff ourselves.
It doesn't call to us. So there's not really a judgment on it other than it doesn't call to us. Therefore, it does call to us.
Yeah. Would it...
And yoga, the roots of Forrest Yoga come from India, which, as best as people know, comes, that's the roots of it. I mean, there's many people that have said that there's roots of it in Egypt, and there's old carvings from Mexico, and like yoga has some very mysterious roots, but it comes, as best as we know right now, from Mother India. So there's reverence for that. But it's also grown way past that.
We are also part of Giving Back to India as well. So there's a program called Giving Back to India, and Anna and I offer our services acknowledging India as the home of yoga. So we do charity work for India as well.
And
I think asana.
We were invited to one of the Indian conferences and festivals in Rishikesh at Parnath, and so we taught there too, which was really wild because we got to teach right by the Ganga River to close to 1,000 people. It was amazing to bring our songs and ceremonies.
Yeah. It seems like very early on, though, Anna, that you felt that asana, that just the practice of asana wasn't enough for the healing, right? And you were on another podcast. I think Jay's speaking about going to LA for a number of years to work therapeutically with a psychologist or something there.
Well, I worked with a number of different people, but two that were really major for me was Rosalind Bruyere, who is a hands-on healer,
right?
And Morris Netherton.
Morris, that was the guy. Yeah.
Morris.
Yeah.
Well, Morris gave me the tools to save my life. That was very important. So through regression therapy, he helped me get to the things that were hidden in me and that were poisoning me, kind of like harboring bullets of life experiences that were poisoning me, and helped me extricate them. And so I also...
And can you bring that into the yoga? I suppose that's my question. So a lot of people would assume, I practice asana, it's enough. The asana will heal me, especially in Ashtanga, right? Like, just practice, right? And that wasn't the case for you. You were proficient at asana, you were teaching asana, I think, and then latterly went off, and did more and more therapy work. Can you bring that into your asana practice, or does it have to be separate? And does one inherently need to do other stuff other than asana?
Yes, and yes, and yes. So yes, you can bring it into your practice. Yes, you need to do the work separately. And yes, there's more to you than what happens in my Ashtanga friends, for example. They focus on doing the pose, the trick, and there's more to it than that. You can do so much good medicine work in the pose. But you have to bring your mindfulness to it, not just like, okay, I just need to get through my series, so I can get on with my day. It's like, no, you need to bring your intelligence, your spirit, everything you got to this practice, and use it in a way that's healing. And I know Patabi Joyce used to say, I'll just practice and all was coming. It's like, well, if you're practicing in a way that's injuring you, what's coming is more injury. Yeah. So don't be stupid. You have to change your practice if something is hurting you. And then how do you do it? One, you can go to someone who knows something else. Two, you start exploring how do you use these poses in a healing way, not in a way that's shredding your hamstrings or your SI joint? So you need to work with these poses and individually customize them for whatever you got going on.
I must say, Adam, that another important thing besides the ceremony, music, and cultural aspects that I brought to Forrest Yoga, one of the most important things that I brought to Forrest Yoga was veganism. So before I came to Forrest Yoga was still a meat-eating yoga system.
Yeah, because I was.
Yeah. So.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't know that. Right. Okay. So that was another big question I wanted to ask you. I know it is. I know. I've heard you talk about that as well. Right. Okay. Excellent.
So
and you are very particular about that, and also you share a preference that me and my wife have done for many years, which is the no onion, no garlic, which is often a topic.
Adam.
Yeah, which is very strange to hear some other people talking about it. But I've been very adamant about that personally for 20 years now. 20 years. So can you explain why you're so specific about that? I mean, obviously people know about the ahimsa, the meat eating stuff, but it's still most yoga students don't follow the onions garlic rules.
That's true.
Oh my God. When we go into a yoga room, Adam, it is, and we've been teaching in person again in the USA, it's absolutely putrid. People are smelling of yoga and garlic, of onions and garlic in the yoga room every single class. They absolutely stink, and they have no idea that they smell. And everywhere Anna and I go, we jump on an aeroplane, it stinks of onion and garlic. We go to a theater, onion and garlic, yoga, you name, wherever you go, your friends and family stink of onions and garlic.
Apart from the smell, why not to eat it?
Well, first of all, it's very damaging. Garlic should only be used as an antibiotic. It kills brain cells. It damages digestion, and just the putrid smell of how you stink afterwards should be a warning not to have it. Now, here's the thing. I've traveled to over 70 countries around the world with indigenous and yoga teachings, and I can tell you that every single temple in the whole world, whether it's India, Vietnam, Korea, wherever, do not have onions or garlic. So anyone who has any real spiritual sense of connection know that onion and garlic is offensive to the connection to spirit. And there's a ton of stuff on it. Krishnamacharya said that food is the first yoga, not the second yoga, the first yoga. Now, there you are. That's the grandfather of modern yoga.
It must be hard traveling around, though. I mean, it must cause you a lot of trouble to, in eating out and eating on the go. You're traveling to all these countries. How do you manage that?
Well, you have to train people. Anna and I'm a vegan chef, so Anna gets to eat the most exquisite food every single day because I cook every day of the week. I love cooking as much as I love composing music on the piano.
And what are your other principles apart from the injunction for no onions, no garlic? What are the other principles around your cooking?
Well, I'm going to start with a simple one, which is one of the reasons why I was telling people no onions and garlic is garlic also interferes with your hand-eye coordination. So you get a little bit stupider and you get disconnected. Onion irritates the stomach lining. But there's also this other factor, I teach people how to breathe and how to bring in that sacredness of breath. And if the air around you is laden with this disgusting, putrid, dog shit kind of smell that exudes off of people who eat onion and garlic, you can't breathe. I would go in to put my hands in an adjusting way, in a helpful healing way on people, and their smell is so bad, I can't breathe. And it's just this is no good. This has got to stop.
But you were eating it before when you were eating meat. You were eating onions and garlic. Is this a more recent thing, or has this been?
No, I wasn't eating onions and garlic.
Okay.
I haven't been eating onions and garlic for decades because it's I started teaching this too. It's like, if you come to my class, it's going to be hot and sweaty in here, and you need to not stink, because I can't breathe if you eat this food. I can't breathe, and neither can anyone else. So you've got to stop it. So I've been teaching this for a while. So that it had a lot to do with
how do people react to this? Because it is a unique. I bet they do. It is a unique message, and I kind of wanted you to speak on it again. But I thought, when I heard you speak on it in another podcast, I thought, well, that's it's not common. It's not commonly out there to have.
Well,
this.
It is in Ayurvedic medicine. It's
right,
absolutely
yes,
common,
but not in the yoga. Not in the yoga world.
No, the yoga world is still relatively asleep on that very important aspect. But anyone who goes deeply into the journey and sees the temples in Rishikesh and all over Asia, there is no onions and garlic. And all spiritual teachers who reach a certain level of maturity know about the garlic and onion rule. But I went one step further. I made Forrest Yoga a vegan-friendly system, to have ahimsa, non-violence, even on the dinner plate.
Does that mean that you're saying to the people coming to the class, don't come if you need to eat this way in order to come and participate? Or
not at all.
No. Right.
No, it's not a rule. Whenever we teach a teacher training, say if there's 50 people in the room, there might be only 4 or 5 vegans, which was surprising for me. I thought, wow, the yoga community must be, pretty awake. And Anna and I had been on the road for 8 years touring around the world. And what surprised me was that meat eating is still very popular amongst the yogis, even though Krishnamacharya, the principal teaching was that food is the first yoga, not anatomy, not anything else.
Yeah.
Food is the first yoga.
That's fantastic you said that. I suppose the question on from that, and the fact that you say very rightly so that you're healers and you give a lot of information, a lot of instruction. But Anna, you clearly had a rebellious streak with your own teachers, right? I mean, I wonder how you both look at the role of as teachers now, in terms of, and also in light of the rather domineering and perhaps the disappointment of the gurus, etc. And how you now see yourself as teachers in relation to giving students their own autonomy to work it out, right?
Well, we give people information. So I want to say, when we go to workshops or conferences or whatever, and we're only going to be with somebody for 3 days, we can make a suggestion. We suggest you stay clear of garlic and onion, and we suggest you don't do any drugs while you're working with us, because it's just going to mess.
Fair enough. Yeah.
People don't think about it. It's like, oh, my glass, or 7 glasses of wine or beer or whatever, or my Coke. Or it's like, you'll do better without that. Other connection, not to your chemicals, but to your nervous system and your endorphin system and everything else. But in teacher training, we say you'll be drug-free and be vegan for this time, when you have us to ask questions about how to work with a nutritional strategy that is an optimal health program. So do that while you're with us. And one of the things that I really love and we get to do occasionally is when we have a residential retreat or training where the food is set up already for people, because a lot of people don't know how to have tasty, wonderful, nutritious food. They haven't a clue. They do their onion, garlic, salt, pepper, and there's their spices. And
it's a kind of routine, isn't it?
Jose uses a whole array of beautiful spices like curries and cumin and turmeric and ginger. And there's ways of making your food really good medicine with the spices too, but also absolutely a wonderful explosion of flavors on your tongue. And people think vegan diet is deprivation. No, it's not. I've never eaten so well in my life.
Yeah, I taught Anna that because when you could imagine how strong-headed Anna is, and I'm the same as well, because I've been a vegan teacher for just on 30 years, and there's 3 reasons to be a vegan. The first is compassion. The second is to save the environment. And the third is to save yourself, your health. And trying to explain this to Anna Forrest when we first got together, there was a bit of a head clash, but it didn't take her long to pick up, especially the first one, compassion, when I showed her films of abattoirs, of the debauchery and holocaust of animals, and also to take in this suffering. Everything has vibration, and to take in this suffering of animals leads or it adds to your own suffering. Now, this is nothing new, because even the Native American shamans, the Aboriginal shamans tell us when we violate animals and we don't do the proper spiritual prayers and preparation for it, eventually the animals eating animals will give you the cancers. And that's the reason that meat eaters have 30 to 40% more chances of getting cancer than a vegan. So we are eating violated animals day in, day out. And what is a violated animal? It's a factory farmed animal, which goes through a process of literally torture. And you're taking that tortured, cooked flesh into your body. And therefore, you're adding to your own suffering. And when Anna first became a vegan, 6 months after the suffering, she could see this cold. 6 months after being a vegan, she could see the suffering of the animals coming out in like a black coal dust, which the shamans tell us when suffering leaves the body, psychically they see a black coal dust leaving the aura.
And it also gave me a chance to stand at that crossroads of, is the next choice I'm about to make, not even necessarily about food, is it going to increase my suffering or decrease it? You know, like they gave me a point of leverage to recognize something I couldn't see before, which was when my actions would continue me down that path of suffering. I've had a lot of pain and suffering in my life. And the yoga and medicine process has been about alleviating that and opening to different realms. And so being able to see, like, okay, I'm at a crossroads right now and I can choose differently.
Right.
That was powerful. Now, I want to go back to something you were asking about as teachers. It's like we are...
I wanted to qualify that and try again as well. The fact that your practice seems very much about empowering students to, and you yourself have very much empowered yourself rather than following another teacher. Many of us followed Batabi Joyce. Many people followed BKS Iyengar, right? But you've always carved your own way. And I'm assuming that your teaching is also about kind of empowering students rather than getting them to follow you.
Following the light of another person can sometimes lead to darkness, especially if there is dependence. Anna and I are independent teachers. We follow nobody except ourselves, and we just give the student the tools to be their own master, their own leader, without blindly following someone. And, I'm going to kiss the master's feet and all this nonsense. We want you to be the guru. We want you to be the master, but we realize that that's going to take a little bit of time.
And we want people to work with us. We do. But what we are teaching people is how to connect to their own spirit, how to connect to their own innate intelligence. We do ceremonies to help people discover and connect to what's their purpose in being alive. But then, they need and want to keep coming back, but then they go out on their own life adventure. And then they come back and they get another hit of working with us and with ceremony, and then they go out. It's like it's an ebb and flow. But we also have learned, for me, when I am working with these other teachers, when I was in that mode, it's like there were things that were worthwhile that I took. It's like sun exercises. I love sun exercises. I took that from the Shivananda system. I'm not going to throw away the things that are worthwhile. There's many wonderful things in the yoga pool like the 8 steps of yoga and all these things that are really good medicine. They're really good things to work with, and some of them are not. When people who are teaching yoga, they have a internal twisting and perversion. I don't want their perversion. I'm not going to pick it up.
Fair enough.
I'm not going to be blind to it either. So there's.
How do you, I mean, I suppose people, I was thinking of the critiques, saying, what about the devotional aspect? How do you bring that devotion to a teacher into forest yoga? Or devotion to a practice? How does that come in? Yeah.
Well, we have the ceremonial aspect where we smoke, we acknowledge the ancestors, we acknowledge the Native American people, the land we teach on, or we also pray. That there's everything starts with a prayer and intent. So there is a big acknowledgement, but we're not acknowledging any Batabi choice or anyone like that.
No.
We are acknowledging the Great Spirit, just as our indigenous teachings tell us that we always acknowledge and show appreciation and gratitude to the Great Spirit who vibrates in all of us. So we make sure that we work the body, we express the emotions, we still the mind, and we nurture the spirit. It's a 4-way thing. So when people leave, we want people to keep, doing a really good physical practice. We want also to connect people. Another part that I brought into Forest Yoga was connecting people to the arts. So this is a yoga to do off stage, whether it's singing, drumming, writing, playing an instrument, painting, acting, whatever it may be. We encourage people to connect to the arts, and that is to nurture the spirit, because the physical practice is not enough. So you need the physical practice, but you also need the diet. The diet is of utmost importance. People are killing themselves with their diet and with their alcohol and drugs and everything. And of course, to still the mind is very important as well. And while we have our little iPhones with social media, pornography, and all this other stuff, what we're doing is we're just feeding the neurosis big time. So, that's what Anna and I are about.
So I'm still on the same thing, is that when people work with us, we want to inspire them. We want to help them turn on, but also to give them the tools to turn themselves on. But it's like people need to gather. It's an innate human thing. And we want people to come and gather with us. And then we want them to go out there and ignite the people that are in their personal circle. When we train people in teacher training, I ask each and every person at the end of the course to make a pledge to do their part in mending the rainbow hoop of the people, because this is our spirit pledge in the world. But we can't do it alone. We need other people to teach the forest yoga, to teach this good medicine, because all of our trainees can reach much farther than me and Jose. And so we're asking people, is like, here's this good medicine. This is our life work we're giving to you. Please, take it out to your circle. Take it out to your community, please. So we want people working with us in that way, but we need them to have their intelligence turned on. We don't want people to be mindless slaves. We want them to be free human beings.
Conscious of time, Anna, I think I've heard you speak of your adjustments before, and I think you said some really good things about physical handles adjustments, how important they are still, even though people are, increasingly worried about giving hands-on adjustments these days. Do you want to say something about your philosophy of adjustments and how you adjust a student? Not crank them into something.
No. This is part of also learning how to work the poses on your own, as well as working it as a teacher doing hands-on adjustments. You're feeling creating a sense of freedom in there. And
I like the idea of congestion was a good word.
When something's hurting, it's usually there's
pressure. And Matthews Ratty used to say that to me. It's congested area.
And so learning to adjust someone with their breathing, like when I go to lift someone, it's either I say now inhale or exhale, and we teach how to move people with our hands, as well as learning how to run energy through our hands. Both of us are healers, and we train our Forrest Yoga people how to use their hands in a healing way. And it's like, we also train people, it's like, look, sex is a wonderful thing. Don't fuck your students. Keep your hands off of their crotch, off of their breasts, off of their ass. Just keep it separate. So that your adjustments are good medicine. They're not like foreplay for later tonight. Don't do that. Don't do that.
Yeah.
So and when we put our hands on someone, they know our hands are on them in a helpful way. And we're also feeling very deeply like what's going to be helpful here. And we're feeling as we move someone, is this creating an opening, or is there resistance, or the person is tightening in fear? It's like, if they're tightening in fear, you stop. You stop and you wait. You don't flip your hands off and like go off in a huff, like, oh, you're resisting the adjustment. It's like, that's childish. But
how do you teach your teachers to do that? You know, first of all, how do you teach your teachers to have pure intention? How do you inspire that? And also, how do you teach them to right, you talk about it.
We get them practicing it. We supervise them. Or we say like something, a lot of times it's really simple. It's like, hey, you're not breathing as you're adjusting this person, therefore you can't feel them. You can't feel what you're doing.
Right.
So, we teach people to align their breathing with the person they're adjusting.
Yeah.
We teach them how to listen through their hands. We teach them how to make adjustments that matter. Like, you don't just go down the row and adjust everybody the same adjustment. They don't all need the same thing.
Yeah.
So you have to look and see, as people progress, we teach them how to see energy, see where the energy is congesting, see when it starts to free up and flow, and to see that way, or to feel with the hands. We teach them that. That's part of our training.
And we do have some classes with music healing as part of our advanced training and foundation trainings, where we show how music healing works and how we run the vibration of the music into the injury. So that documentary I told you about, the 100-foot wave, we were doing an Aboriginal technique of running the vibration of the didgeridoo into the injury. And people say, how does that work? Well, it's working at a metaphysical level, because the aura is the first level of protection. And with music healing, which has been going on for 60,000 years with my people, and it used to just be part of regular healing, the structure of the electromagnetic field is corrected when someone is listening to music. So there's been many experiments of this, people with cancer sitting in a dark room, listening to a classical piano. You get them relaxed, you get them at that second attention level, and then all of a sudden the cancer gets better. Or people call this a placebo effect, but there is something going on at a subatomic level. And the Aboriginal people, Native Indian people, have known this for years, to play the flute or the didgeridoo at the person into the injury. And it was used in ancient Greek, ancient Rome, Aristotle.
Absolutely.
And now it's coming back in yoga with sound baths and like this.
And also, touch is the first language of the body.
Yeah.
And so, like, with all this phobia about don't touch each other, stay away from each other, it's creating a disconnect in a in the spirit.
And that's what I want. Yeah. So what did you hear to say that? Because I did a podcast recently with Bessel van der Kolk. I don't know whether you heard of him. The Body Keeps the Score, that book. And he said, it's imperative that you keep touching. Traumatized people that have had abuse need to be touched in a healing way. If you don't use touch in that body, that's the worst thing you can do. They'll never, if you don't take that away from them, And so I thought that was a good message that you were giving there with the touch. Yeah.
Yeah, we totally agree with him.
People
100%.
People are becoming increasingly skeptical. There's trauma in the class now. It's very much a buzzword as well, like, kind of like trauma conscious yoga. So we better not touch anyone lest we traumatize them further, But actually, I mean, what Bessel was saying, there's a sine qua non of trauma work over these years. You actually need to, obviously, one has to be skillful, but you need to do, you need to.
If you don't learn a new way, then you're stuck with the old way.
Exactly.
With yoga, it can move a lot of that out of the cell tissue. And with a good healing intent person with their hands on someone helping, then that person that's had hurt can also learn touch in a healing way, and it begins to heal.
Yeah.
This horrible way of being touched.
Yeah.
It's like it's we need that. That's another one of these innate things is like before the world went crazy, it's like a mother and father would be touching a child all the time. And that's the way that it comforts and nourishes that child. When babies are not touched, they sicken. And that's true for all of us. It's like touch is healing. Now, of course, there are people that use touch in a horrible way, and they are twisted. They are, that's what you want to make sure you never do. And so when a yoga teacher goes to touch her or his student, they need to just check out like, if I'm really sexually attracted to this person, you need to clear that out of your field before you put your hands on them. And just be the teacher with them. And have your relationships, your sexual relationships elsewhere, because it makes messes in the yoga room. And then when we have our partners, our husbands, our wives, our girlfriends, our boyfriends in the room with us, then you also still need to clear that out when you touch them. You're just there doing this beautiful energy assistance instead of, some other thing like
a mixed message. Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not like we can't have our partners in our yoga room. We absolutely can. But when you do these adjustments, just clear that other stuff out of the way. So that the adjustment can be about helping the energy move in a beautiful way.
Yeah. Okay. That's really important what you said. Thank you. Right, we've done an hour. I always end up with this silly little bit where I say, give me one inspiration. Well, this is not silly. And one guilty pleasure. Just one silly pleasure that you have just to round out the interview, So one inspiration from you both. Something that inspires you. Could be a book, a place, a person, whatever it is that comes to your mind. And something just, don't say chocolate, but something, or you could say chocolate. Something that...
what are you asking us what naughty pleasure Anna and I still have?
Yes.
Okay, coffee.
Coffee. Okay.
We love coffee.
You're a good place, near Vancouver, the West Coast like that for coffee.
People go on. Yogis like you and Anna teaching veganism and all that, and you're still drinking coffee. Well, if you had a work schedule like us, where you had to get up at 2:30, 3 a.m. for yoga practice before a training, then you would see how hard it is to get up at 2:30. 3 a.m. without having a coffee.
But we love our coffee.
Yeah.
We love our coffee. And we do.
I share that with you.
And to be really clean in everything else. So actually chocolate, no.
Just coffee. Coffee is the only pleasure.
No sugar, no milk.
We use like macadamia milk, hazelnut.
Okay. Oh, that sounds nice. I have to come to your house sometime.
Vegan milk.
We have some wonderful milk.
Oh, right. Okay. Right. One day I'll get back over. What about inspiration? Something that really, just something on the top of your head that really inspired Krishnamurti or something, a person.
Krishnamurti is totally an inspiration for both Anna and I.
Yeah. I love Krishnamurti.
He is someone we do really admire.
And also, for both of us, it's really important to touch nature on a regular basis. My heart reaches to the stars. I absolutely am in love with the star fields.
Our love of animals is pretty huge as well.
Yes.
Well, you're in a good place for you. I mean, Orcas Island right now, which for people that don't know, it's the island chain that runs down from Washington down to Canada on the west coast of US and then Canada. So, and it's a beautiful, I mean, I was there with my wife for a number of years in Vancouver area, and it's a beautiful area of nature in the world. Well, I suppose I'm reluctant to wrap it up with you. It's been wonderful to speak to you both. Thank you very much for coming on the Keen Yoga podcast. And I say, I really hope the listeners enjoy it as much as I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.